This is Algebra 1, Lesson 9C, Rules for Division of Signed Numbers. In the last video, we talked about inverse operations. And since multiplication and division are inverse operations, our rules for the multiplication and division of signed numbers must be stated in such a way that these operations are inverse operations. I'm reading to you from the textbook at the bottom of 9b. So the rules for multiplication and division are going to be similar since they are inverse operations. So let's look at this and see if we can figure out the rules for dividing signed numbers. In the first set of problems, we have A, 6 divided by 3, which is 2. B is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And C is 12 divided by 4, which is 3. Okay, so we can see that we had a positive divided by a positive and we got a positive. Okay, another way we can look at that is when these two have the same signs, we ended up with a positive. And we'll talk more about that later. All right, group 2, we can see A, negative 6 divided by 2 is going to be negative 3. Now you may say, well, how do you know that? Well, here's one way that you can think about it. When you do a division, I'm going to go back to A on 1 for a second. This number divided by this number is this number, right? You can look at it backwards, okay? Remember, multiplication and division are inverse operations. So we can think of this same fact as a multiplication. 2 times 3 equals 6. Did you see how I did that? Let's look at A in number 2 then. Whatever this number is times this number has to equal this number. Okay, so let's say I didn't know what the sign was going to be. And I said, well, I feel pretty sure it's going to be 3, right? But I don't know if it's positive or negative. Is positive 3 times positive 2 equal to negative 6? No, it's not, because I watched the last video and I know how, or the last 2 videos, and I know how to multiply signed numbers. So I could say, well, I know then I need a negative here. That negative 3 times 2. And you can think of it as this. 2 jumps on the number line to the left, going negative 3, would help me to land at negative 6. That's how I know that has to be a negative. Again, I can do that because multiplication and division are inverse operations. So let's look at the next example. Let's see if we can figure it out. Negative 10 divided by 5. I feel like we know the 2, right? 10 divided by 5, looking at their absolute values without the signs, just their distance from 0. But what sign is this going to be, positive or negative? Well, if this times this has to be negative 10, then I know I'm going to need to put a negative here. Okay? And then over here, negative 12 divided by 3 is going to be 4, and it's going to have to be a negative because negative 4 times 3 would give me the negative 12. Okay, we're going to generalize these rules, but right now I'm just talking about how you can feel certain that that's the right answer. All right, look at number 3. Okay, number 3, very similar to number 2. They switched where the negative symbols were. So 6 divided by negative 2, we know there's going to be a 3, right? 6 divided by 2. And if I want this number times this number to give me a positive, then we learned in the last couple videos that this has got to be negative, right? Same thing for B. 10 divided by 5 is 2. But whatever this is times this is going to have to give me a positive 10. And right now it's not going to give me that, right? It would give me a negative 10. So I know this answer must be negative. And then the 12 divided by 3. And I know it's going to have to be negative because negative times a negative would give me a positive. Okay? So again, because you know multiplication and division are inverse operations, it can help you figure out those. Let's look at 4. A negative divided by a negative. What are we going to do there? Well, we learned before that when we have a positive times a negative, we get a negative, right? So kind of the same thinking that we used just a minute ago, we can use to figure these out as well. So let's just look at their absolute value. 6 divided by 3 is 2, but I know that this number times this number has to give me this number. So let's see, does it do that? Positive 2 times negative 3, yes it does. It gives me negative 6. So then I'm not missing a negative sign, right? Here, negative 8 divided by negative 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, right? And a positive times a negative would give me a negative. That's 4 jumps of negative 2 to the left, and I end up at negative 8. And then in C, positive 12 divided by positive 4, their absolute values would be equal to 3, and 3 times negative 4 would give me negative 12. So I know that that's my answer. Now, we're going to generalize these a little more in the next video, but just a little preview to you here. Do you see, like we did with multiplication, that when you have same signs, you're going to get a positive? Same signs, positive. Same signs, positive. Ooh, different signs, negative. 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 Same signs, right? These are the same. Then you're going to get a positive. Same signs, positive. Same signs, positive.